everyone, Chef Jill here, welcome back. You asked me questions and I'm gonna answer them. So first up is, what's your favorite chain? So favorite chain restaurant. So we're all familiar with them, we all have them in our neighborhoods probably, or one nearby. I think the key with chain restaurants is consistency, not just in, you going Tuesday and it's the same as it is on Thursday, but also you going across the country and having it in one city and then going to the next. You want it to taste the same, you want it to be what you know it is. And I think one of the most consistent chain restaurants on the planet is Chili's, believe it or not. So I would pick that. Second place with consistency, at least in my neck of the woods, is Olive Garden. So I would go there. A couple of chain restaurants have been falling down around here lately. They include like TGI Fridays, Red Lobster, even our Applebee's is sort of not doing as good as they used to. And again, that consistency is super important. If you have a good meal at a chain, you want it to be the same the next time you go back. So those are my two picks, I would say, among the chain restaurants, at least here in Dover where I live. So question number 2, do you make 2 meals every night? So this sort of insider info, peeling back the curtain here a little bit, but my husband is vegetarian and I am not. He used to be vegan, but he has since added in egg and dairy to his diet within the past couple of years. So do I make 2 meals every night? Not usually. I would say about 90% of the time I eat what he eats. The thing to remember is some people say, well, if you're vegan or you're vegetarian, what do you eat? Like, you're omitting this huge portion of your diet. Well, not really. If you look at the standard meals that you create at home and just take away the animal part, there's still a significant amount left. I mean, we still enjoy pastas and Mexican nights, like we had taco night the other night. We still enjoy a lot of the same sort of American dinner staples that everyone does. If it is something where I need to add a protein, like I'm doing a vegetarian protein for him, then I'll cook myself a piece of chicken, or I'll cook myself, a couple shrimp or something like that to put into the meal. So I'm really only making, let's say I'm making teriyaki. I'm making teriyaki and vegetables, and then I'm adding his protein to his portion and my protein to my portion. So we eat the same most nights, to be honest. And it is possible for you to do that if you have a dietary restriction in your house. You can always reach out to me and I'll help you out any way I can. So third question is, how can I cook for a date and actually impress them? If you can show that your significant other that you're capable of cooking more in the kitchen than what comes out of a box, you are going to win them over. I would never ever suggest cooking for a date as your first date. There's way too much pressure. A, they're in your house or you're going to their house. And B, when do you leave and how soon should it be that you start eating and what if things aren't going well? So first dates are just bad for that. But I would say by, the third or fourth date, you should be capable of bringing somebody into your home or going to their home and experiencing a meal with them in a private place. So how do you actually impress them is you need to be organized and you need to have a menu that is comforting and satisfying, but is maybe something that they haven't tried necessarily. So I actually would like to create a few YouTube videos for you guys of fun date night dinners, maybe meals for 2 that you can customize in different ways. So maybe your guest, your dinner companion is a vegetarian, maybe they're not, maybe they're gluten-free, maybe they're not. You can actually customize and create a menu for them and really impress them, make them feel special without putting a whole lot of stress on yourself and without having to resort to a takeout menu, which a lot of people do. For people who are watching who aren't the best cooks, if you're a little on the younger side, I'm telling you, if you learn half a dozen recipes, you don't have to learn everything. You don't have to go to culinary school, but if you can put a half a dozen recipes in your recipe box up here and you can whip them out when you need them, it will impress people and it will make people really happy that you're capable of cooking for yourself. It's kind of a skill that's going away. This generation really is spending a lot more money eating out than we are eating at home. So it's a good skill to have in your back pocket, even if it's not the thing that you're best at. So question number 4, what recipe do you struggle with? Okay, so I assume you mean in preparation, and I'll tell you a story. So when I was in culinary school, you have to take not only the savory part, the culinary education, but you also have to take the baking part. And I love baking, and I've baked a lot on this channel already, you've seen it, but you have to make something called a chiffon cake. And a chiffon cake is an air leavened cake. So it's not leavened by baking soda or baking powder, it's leavened by egg whites. So you whip up egg whites, you incorporate lots of air, and then you fold those egg whites into your dry ingredients. And that's what gives you your lift. Angel food cake is air leavened that way. But a chiffon cake's a little different. It tends to have more ingredients in it, and it tends to be a little bit trickier to make. And I tried to make that chiffon cake 7 times. I made it twice during class. I made it 3 times after class. I stayed after and did it 3 more times. And then I came in on Saturday morning, on my Saturday, and did it 2 more times with the chef standing right next to me, and it failed all 7 times. Instead of having a nice, 4-inch thick, beautiful chiffon cake, I had a little lemon pancake like this. Or it tipped like this, which is really fun. You'll have it risen on the left and not on the right, so you have like a ski slope. But anyway, that was one recipe I really struggled with. And even today, like doing air leavened, cakes like angel food cakes and stuff is a challenge because you have to have a gentle touch and you have to be good at it. So that might be one of those things where you might want to get a box, and I won't judge you if you use a box. So question number 5, what was your first food job? Okay, like my first food service job. So my first job ever was technically in food service. I worked for a grocery store chain. That chain actually was sort of bought over, swallowed up by Safeway, which is a nationwide American grocery store chain as we know it now. But I actually started working in the bakery department when I was 16 years old. I did setups, which at night is you go in the evening. So after school, I would go in and I would take all the trays, the big sheet pans, and lay parchment on them and set up all of the bread rolls, all of the cinnamon rolls, all of the things that needed to be baked overnight so that they could be bagged in the morning and put out for all of you customers. So I did that for almost a year, and then I transferred in that grocery store to like their pizza and sub area. So I actually got to work in a little bit of actual food service. So that was my first technical job, and I was hired to another Safeway family grocery store while I was in culinary school. So I kind of stayed with that company for a while. So next question is, in your travels, what restaurants were the best? This is tough because I do love to travel and I'm pretty game. I'll try pretty much anything where we go. 2 things popped into my head right away when I read this question. The first thing is probably in high school. I might have been 13 or 14 years old. We went on a field trip to New York City. We went to Little Italy and I had a plate of fettuccine alfredo that changed my life. I think. It was probably the best thing that I had eaten up to that point. And I was a really picky kid. It's important to mention that I was an extremely picky child. So for me to be out of my comfort zone, for me to be in a city that I didn't live in and kind of in an uncomfortable environment by myself without my family, I was curious to try anything. So when I saw Alfredo, I was like, yes, I know what that is. That's great. And it ended up being so good, and it ended up being something that even I talk about now, like 20 some years later. So that one popped into my head. The other one is my Uncle Rob. It was a chef at a restaurant in Philadelphia called the Astral Plane, and we went to have dinner with him, and I was in my teenage years. By that point, I had decided that I was going to go into culinary school, that I was going to be a chef, and he was someone I looked up to, someone I wanted to emulate. So when we went to his restaurant for dinner, we opened up the menu, and it was nice. It was a nicer restaurant than we were used to dining at, with interesting proteins and styles. So I ended up picking the duck. It was a duck entree with a raspberry sauce, and my family tried to talk me out of it because they're like, you're not going to like it. It's not chicken. It's different. You're not going to like it. And so I really want to try it just because it sounds amazing, all the stuff that it's with. And that piece of duck, I can remember how it tastes today. Like all these years later, I can actually remember exactly what it tasted like. I'm so glad that I tried it, and I encourage all of you to try stuff too, because I didn't know I liked duck, and it was such a cool experience to be able to eat in his restaurant, taste duck the way he wanted it to be made, and then enjoy it just as much as he does. So keep trying stuff. But those are the first 2 things I thought of. There was this amazing Irish pub in Switzerland when my husband and I went to Switzerland a couple years ago. There was this amazing Irish pub that had amazing food in Switzerland. We've eaten at some really cool places, but those first 2 were really impactful for me. And last question, what's your best food memory? Okay, well, I gave you a couple of them just then. I gave you a couple just a moment ago, but my best food memories are probably from culinary school. I was exposed to a lot of different ingredients and a lot of different cooking styles that I wasn't familiar with. And I grew up in kind of a get it done. I was one of 6 kids. So food meal times was get it on the table, get them fed, make sure it's enough. That was pretty much how it went. So a lot of my food memories of trying new things and of experimenting with new flavors came in my late teens and early 20s when I actually graduated from culinary school and went out into the world. And I think like the culinary school stuff, like learning how to do stuff for yourself and being able to, cut up a chicken cut up a chicken 8-way, as we call it, is to take the legs and thighs and wings and breasts off. To be able to replicate Chinese food yourself with the right flavors and ingredients. To be able to create a cake, a really beautiful, amazing cake from scratch with flour and sugar and butter is pretty amazing to learn how to do. So those are the food memories that I really hold on to and the ones that I really enjoy. As well as, when I was a kid, I used to make churros with my dad, and that was really cool. We used to make a mess, but we used to make churros, and my great-grandfather used to make pasta from scratch. So that was cool. That's a cool memory that I have. So there are a few in there. I think the ones that stand out the most in my head were learning how to do this crazy thing called cooking, at least professionally anyway. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Feel free to subscribe for next videos, and thank you so much for sticking through this difficult time and being strong. I love all of you.